All right, today we're diving into a theory that tries to completely reframe one of the biggest, weirdest tech stories of our time. It's a provocative take on Elon Musk's grand strategy, and it's all centered on a pretty intense idea the source material calls technofascism. Okay, so let's start with the one question that had everyone scratching their heads. Why on earth did Elon Musk, a man who builds giant physical things that go to space and drive on our roads, spend billions of dollars on a digital town square like Twitter? Now, X? The easy answers came out almost immediately. It's a vanity project, a rich guy's whim, maybe a classic midlife crisis. But the source we're digging into today, it just throws all of that right out the window. It argues this move was cold, it was calculated, and from a certain point of view, it was absolutely necessary. So let's start putting the pieces of this puzzle together. And to do that, we have to look at Musk's empire before he ever made a move on Twitter. I mean, think about it. SpaceX builds rockets. Tesla builds cars. These are incredible feats of engineering, for sure. But according to this theory, they are fundamentally, quote, old-fashioned terrestrial stuff. They live in the physical world, but they were missing a key ingredient of the modern economy. And that missing piece is what the source calls cloud capital. Now, this isn't about money in a bank account. It's a whole new kind of power that comes from owning the digital platforms, the cloud, that don't just connect with us, but actively work to shape and modify our behavior. And here's a pretty surprising claim from the source. In this new world of cloud capital, Musk was actually behind. He was a laggard. While guys like Zuckerberg and Bezos were building these huge digital empires on user data, Musk, in this one very specific area, was playing catch-up. So this wasn't an impulse buy. The theory says it was a really clear three-step strategy. Step 1, build incredibly powerful physical assets. Step 2, realize you're missing the crucial link, a direct interface with all your users. And Step 3, acquire that interface in the fastest way you can. And this is exactly how a simple social media app suddenly becomes the critical missing piece for an entire industrial empire. But why Twitter? Well, according to the source, it was simply the, quote, cheapest interface he could get his hands on. It was a ready-made global network that he could just buy and plug directly into everything else, from Starlink satellites to a future fleet of self-driving cars, all one giant connected system. Now, to really see how this theory plays out in the real world, we just have to look at a Tesla, because from this point of view, it is not at all what you think it is. So forget the engine, forget the battery life. The source completely reframes the vehicle, calling it an iPad on wheels. And that one metaphor, it really shifts our focus from transportation to information, doesn't it? Because this so-called iPad on wheels is allegedly doing way more than just driving. The source claims it's a massive surveillance tool, constantly keeping tabs on your location, your conversations, maybe even your mood, and every single little habit you have behind the wheel. And here's the payoff, at least according to the source. It alleges that a staggering 25% of Tesla's revenue doesn't come from selling cars at all. It comes from selling the enormous amounts of data those cars are collecting. The car isn't just the product. You, the driver, are. And this is where the theory takes a really dark turn. It becomes about ultimate control. The source asserts that this deep digital connection gives Musk the power to remotely disable any vehicle. Just press a button and your car doesn't work. It even claims second-hand cars can be bricked, giving the company the final say over property you thought you owned. So, what do you even call a system that merges this kind of corporate control with that level of surveillance and behavior modification? Well, the source has a name for it. Technofascism. It's defined as an economic system where the real power doesn't belong to people who own factories anymore. Instead, it belongs to a new class of people called 𝗙𝗿𝗆𝘆lists, the ones who own the digital machinery that shapes how we act and extracts value from us. Let's just break that down. In traditional capitalism, right, power came from owning the means of production, factories, and the goal was to generate profit. But in technofascism, power comes from owning the means of behavior modification, the platforms, and the goal shifts from just making a profit to achieving rent and ultimately control. Now, I know this all sounds really big and abstract, but the theory brings it right back down to our daily lives and asks us to think about our role in this new digital world. The source uses this really powerful metaphor from history. If someone like Musk is a new kind of feudal lord owning the digital land that we all live on,
Well, what does that make us?
The answer, according to this theory, is cloud serfs. We are users basically trapped inside these huge digital fiefdoms, X, Amazon, Facebook. And with every click, every post, and every drive, we're working the digital land, generating the most valuable resource there is, data, for the new lord of the manor.
And here is the final, pretty thought-provoking conclusion from the source. This isn't just about your privacy. The argument is that this system fundamentally rewires our entire economy, siphoning value towards a tiny handful of owners. And maybe most critically, it's a system that's so embedded in our lives that it's nearly impossible to opt out. So the question it leaves us with is, what happens when the digital town square becomes a private fiefdom?